What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and it's time to talk about the best games in all of 2020. Now, be aware of something before I actually get into this, which is the fact that I have managed to play over 100 games in the last 12 months. That means giant indie experiences, huge AAA games. I mean, I have played a lot of freaking stuff, but some people are going to disagree with me, of course, right? Things like a lot of people loved freaking Last of Us Part 2. I didn't exactly love it, whereas there is also some stuff I didn't play, like Immortals Phoenix Rising or Call of Duty this year. But even that being said, it's time to try and dive deep to find the best of the best, the experiences that absolutely everybody needs to freaking play. So these are my picks of the top 10 games in 2020. Number 10, Spider-Man Miles Morales. It's definitely no secret that I'm a big fanboy for the original web slinger. I definitely like Spider-Man and Peter Parker and all their crazy hijinks, but I've been especially curious about this game because Miles Morales is himself a very different character. He has electric powers, he has different motivations, and so I wanted to see what his take on New York would end up being, but I never could have imagined that it would be this freaking good. Now, not only did I manage to Platinum Trophy this game, I double Platinum Trophied it. I actually played through and got every single freaking achievement in the PlayStation 4 version and then the PlayStation 5 version because I just couldn't get enough of it. Getting a chance to sling around, bash people up, use all my crazy new talent points, and then of course play through each and every freaking side quest. This is an experience that I almost wish I could forget just so I could go through and play it again from the very start. Number 9, Doom Eternal. It feels like the best sequels are games that almost seem like a puzzle piece, where the developers are trying to figure out the most appropriate way to make the game bigger, better, and of course more fun. And Doom Eternal is definitely that. This is the ultimate version of ripping and tearing. Now, the major thing that I really loved about this game is so much about the new guns, the new monsters, but honestly the thing I think they kind of refined in a way is all the platforming sections. It was weird that this game managed to have air dashes and monkey bars and so much stuff in it that felt so fun and rewarding, and honestly, it's one of those games that I feel like the more time I spent on it, the more I really began to appreciate just how complex every single arena we fight in is. This is one of those games that if you're managing to play it, you should turn the difficulty way the heck up, blast the freaking music, and enjoy every demonic death. Number 8, Yakuza Like a Dragon. Okay, so we all realize that 2020 has been a completely garbage year. Pretty much everything about this year has completely sucked. But one thing that did happen that really kind of made me smile was the fact that I noticed a lot of very old game series have been trying to reinvent themselves. But one that managed to really strike a chord was Yakuza Like a Dragon. Now, the classic Yakuza games were open world beat-em-ups. They were games where you got to roam around the streets of Japan, getting in fist fights and kind of creating your own adventure. Whereas Yakuza Like a Dragon is strangely more focused, but it's also a turn-based RPG. It actually has a class system, it has a more tight narrative in a lot of aspects, and this is a game that completely blew me away. It's kind of amazing that they managed to make so many freaking Yakuza games, and here we are on what is basically Yakuza 7, and they found a formula that is so different and yet still so at home. If you love RPGs, please, I am literally begging you, be open-minded and give this game a shot. Number 7, Animal Crossing. It is totally undeniable that this game had a massive cultural impact in this year. I mean, pretty much everybody has been making memes talking about the villagers, showing off their own island, or even just doing things where if we were all stuck in quarantine, I noticed a lot of people were having like birthday parties or graduations inside of Animal Crossing. But this is really just a testament to the extremely good quality of this experience. Now, basically, if you really boil it down to its core assets, there's not really much to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I mean, basically the game is just kind of going around collecting beetles and bugs and fleshing out a museum by finding fossils and stuff, but it's this simplicity that also kind of amplifies its very wholesome nature. Like, this is one of those games that I saw a lot of people putting sometimes thousands of hours into because it's one of those experiences that you want to just spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes every single day you can. Even myself, who's typically not into these hyper cutesy games, I found myself going back to the world and checking out the other updates just because I was curious to see what comes next in Animal Crossing. Number 6. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Remake. Perhaps one of the strangest things to happen this year has definitely been the debate over the course of the last couple months about which games could even be qualified as a Game of the Year prospect. Like, which games are not just good, but should we count remakes and remasters? Well, in this way, I definitely think that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater deserves a position on this list because it is more than just a straight-up remake. They've managed to change the physics, the speed, they've combined, obviously, the best freaking skate tracks of all time all into one big lump sum. But more than any of that, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is still just such a freaking fun game. Grinding on rails, unlocking new parks, getting away to try and customize each piece of your board from the wheels to the trucks, and more than that, going online and actually facing against other players or using the internet to show off your own custom tracks. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is such an addictively fun experience and one of those things that I found myself wanting to play or stream or have my friends come over and just do a little bit of co-op. Because whether I'm winning at horse or I'm just falling off my skateboard again, it is always such a gnarly good time. Number 5. Final Fantasy VII Remake. This project specifically was by far the hardest one to try and figure out where it deserves to be on the list, because I am such a Final Fantasy fanboy. I think the universe is fun, I love their cool, unique art styles, I think the magic is fantastic, but Final Fantasy VII Remake is so close to perfect, except for the fact that they very, very much tainted the ending. Now, I'm not going to talk about that, I don't want to spoil it in the middle of a top 10, but everything about this was so good except that. I loved the side quests, I loved the difficulty options and how freaking rewarding hard mode was, but more than all of that, it was just such a blast to get deep into this combat. It was so brilliant to swing my sword and figure out how to blast somebody's weakness. Like, every freaking part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, other than those tiny little gripes, managed to so closely capture the initial spirit of the game that came out 20 years ago. Like, seriously, this game will always have a giant place in my heart, and perhaps most importantly, it gets me so hyped for what might come in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. Number 4. Persona 5 Royal. It seems like there's very few games these days that manage to surprise me. Like, typically, if something's coming out, I've watched all the trailers, I'm aware of the discourse, I'm completely ready for it. Nothing could have prepared me properly for just how freaking amazing Persona 5 is. Now, I played the original Persona 5 a couple years ago, that was a blast, but this remake, or the Royal, it feels like more than a remaster. The character models have been redone. They've added in tons of extra dialogue. There's a huge extra piece of palace. There's new characters that can actually be played, leveled up, and explored with. Like, this is such a hefty chunk of content. The fact that they even decided to call this Persona 5 Royal instead of calling it Persona 5 2 or 5.2 or something like this is a hefty freaking game that is definitely more than just DLC, and it was definitely one of my favorite freaking games of the entire year, more than anything because of the fact that it is over 100 hours of juicy, meaty content. It is like an entire freaking season of the best anime you've ever watched in your freaking life, except you are the main character. Number 3. Demon's Souls. There is one topic in gaming that seems to never die, which is the idea of difficulty. How hard should a game be before it stops being fun? And at the crux of this is definitely the Dark Souls series, or in this case, Demon's Souls, because while this topic never seems to die, you're definitely going to die a lot when it comes to this game. It is brutally difficult. Now, I know a lot of people like to try and say, well, if you play it for like 500 hours, it's not that difficult. Well, you know what, Bert, or whatever the hell your name is, the game is still tough, but that's what makes me revel in it. I really enjoy the tactics of trying to figure out the weakness of a boss, or just trying to grind a bunch of random zombies until I have enough souls myself to upgrade my weapon that I prefer the most. I also like the fact that one of the things that's the biggest strength of Demon's Souls is that it very much kind of asks you to do your own research. There is definitely a right way and a wrong way to play this game, but to me that is a giant benefit. I like trying to play this game, failing and getting thrown down into a pit or something, and then having to Google what the hell did I do wrong, and then getting better because of it. The act of participating in Demon's Souls is almost part of the point. It's part of the art itself, and it's one of those things that I'm glad they managed to instill so perfectly in this remake. Number 2, Hades. Alright, so this entry might shock you because if you've been subscribed for a couple of years, you probably remember the fact that I've done a lot of freaking top 10s, and a lot of times I really revel in the act of counting down the biggest and best games of any particular year, but I have never put an indie game this freaking high on the list. But Hades earns its freaking slot. Now the reason why is that this is a roguelike. Now what that means is that every time you turn it on, the game is very much randomized. What this basically equates to is that you are playing as this like fallen godchild who's trying to fight his way up to Olympus, but doing this is incredibly difficult. You get to choose your weapon at the very start, whether it be a machine gun or a fist or a shield you can throw around to bash people about, and then once you have it, you have to try and fight through randomized rooms of randomized enemies with randomized strengths, and on top of that, every time you finish one of these courses, you get what are basically randomized buffs, which are called the boons of the gods. The people up on Mount Olympus want to help you escape the dark pit of Hades, and so they'll throw down an ability to make it where you can deflect bullets while you're dashing, or an extra life, or something like just some extra money so you can buy some extra upgrades on the river Styx. But that sounds so basic. What is difficult to try and convey in just words and not with action is how freaking fun this is. I spent so many hours trying to escape the bottomless pits of hell. I loved every second I got the chance to die again and go back to hell and then suddenly have to spend my tiny little meager darkness points to upgrade my character, managing to put Titan blood into one of the weapons I love most to make myself a little bit stronger, getting a better bow and stuff. Like, every time you get an upgrade in this and get even an inch further into your escape from hell, it feels so freaking rewarding. The fact that this was early access and managed to get such a polished full release, I mean, I cannot say enough good things about this, and it is almost my game of the year. It was so tempting to give this the top slot, except for the fact that the number 1 game, to me, it kind of beats it out. But now it's time to talk about that. Number 1. Ghost of Tsushima. There's an ancient saying I've always loved, which says that those who seek vengeance should dig 2 graves, which is of course trying to convey the fact that whenever it comes to trying to kill your enemies or seek some sort of retribution, you're not going to be the same person on the other side. You must kill yourself in order to defeat your enemies. And Ghost of Tsushima is truly the ultimate display of that. We are playing as Jin, one of the last samurais in the entire country, and unfortunately, all of his brethren have died in a very catastrophically negative freaking battle. But instead of just laying on the beach and accepting his own demise, he keeps getting back up. He decides that by any cost, he will get his revenge, even if that means turning his back on the samurai ways. Sometimes the best way to actually get even is to go even lower. Poison food, try and sneak into darkness, stabbing somebody in the back. Not everything needs to be about honor and respect. But more than the story, I love the freaking gameplay of Ghost of Tsushima. The times where I get a chance to clash a freaking blade, do a perfect parry, get inside somebody's block and completely rip them in half, there is such a glorious freaking gore about this game. It is so nice to stab somebody and chop them up and kind of just find every single enemy that wants to destroy your nation and completely end them for it. But more than that, this got some pretty substantial, completely free updates, new content, new game plus, and even freaking multiplayer that expanded the game's mythology and gameplay into so many different directions. Honestly, there's nothing else I can even say about this because it's just so perfect on its own that I'm happy to heap praise upon it. If you haven't already, give it a shot because Ghost of Tsushima absolutely will not disappoint. And for that reason, I'm very pleased to reward it as my pick as the best game in 2020. Did your favorite game not make the list? Got an idea for a future top 10? Leave in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. This video was absolutely a fun to freaking edit and everything. I really want to appreciate you guys. This has been a crazy year for reviews. I mean, I cannot even imagine how much this channel would blow up. This has been bonkers. I love you guys a bunch. All right, now I gotta go finish building a shelf. I'm trying to improve my background. thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.